100 digits of pi.
3.14159, this is pi, followed by 2653589, circumference over diameter 79, then 323, OMG, can't you see? 8462643, and now we're on a spree. 38 and 32, now we're blue, oh who knew? 7,950 and then a 2. 88 and 41, so much fun, now we're on 9716939 and 3751. Halfway done. 458, now don't be late. 209, where's the wine? 74, it's on the floor. Then 94459. 230, we gotta go. 78, we can't wait. 1640628, we're almost near the end. Keep going. 62, we're getting through. 089, out of time. 862, 8034, there's only a few more. 2, then 53, 42, 11, 7, oh, and 67. We're done. Was that fun? Learning random digits so that you can write to your friends.
All right, there you go. The first digits of pi. We use pi for when we're looking at circumference and area of circles and sectors, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at area formula of the circle and finding areas of sectors. And so that's going to be similar to 11.1, but now we're talking about the area and not the length of an arc. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and just look at a little cartoon. Here's medieval pickup battles. So a lot like medieval pickup games on a basketball court. They go shirts and skins, or instead of this case, armor and skins. The one guy said, "This is dumb, really dumb. Why do we have to go skins?" Imagine doing that with swords and everything. All right, so getting into our area of a circle, that's the area formula right there, is pi r squared. So that's one you should know by now for sure. You just square the radius and multiply it by pi. That gives you the area formula. So on page 322 in your extra practice, the first two, just find the area of circle M, and you can see the diameter is 5 centimeters long. So we need to know the radius. So we got to half that. So the radius, again, we'll use our formula here. I just put it on top just to keep us in check with the formula. But the radius is 2.5, so that's going to be half of 5. And now we got to plug that into this formula, so it's pi r squared. So pi times 2.5 squared. 2.5 times itself is 6.25. So it's 6.25 times pi, and just on the calculator, 6.25 times 3.14 gives us 19.63. And we're going to want to say centimeters squared. So we use the centimeters, but we're going to always say squared for this one. When it's just a regular length, it's centimeters, but when you ever do area, it's always going to be squared. When we eventually get to volume, it'll be cubed. Area of circle R, this one does tell you that the radius is 7, so there's the radius right there at 7. Plug it into the formula. It's 7 squared, then times pi. So it's 49 pi, and then just multiply 49 times 3.14. Gives you 153.86. And we're talking about meters, so it's going to be meters squared. Okay, on page 323, you're going to see 3 to 8 now, but we're going to look at just 3 to 6 first here, just with the area of the circle. We're going to be identifying the indicated measure, finding that indicated measure. So we're looking for a diameter, we're looking for an area of the circle with a diameter of 1.8 inches. So they give us the diameter, we're looking to find the area. So we need to just cut this in half to find the radius. So that's the first thing to do, is identify the radius. So 1.8 divided by 2, that's going to be 0.9. So 0.9 is going to be our radius. We just plug that into the formula again. So that would be pi times 0.9 squared, and 0.9 squared, that's going to be 8.1, or I should say not 8.1, 0.81. So 0.81 times pi, so 0.81 times 3.14. We just multiply that on the calculator, and we get our answer of 2.54, and we're in inches, so it's going to be inches squared. Number 4, we want to know the diameter, and they're telling us the radius, so it's just the opposite. So we need to have that formula. So if we're going to find the diameter, first we're going to have to find the radius, because the radius is in the formula. And once we know the radius, then we can multiply by 2. So we'll use that formula again. Area equals pi r squared. We know the area is 10, so we're going to plug in 10 for the a. And then we got to solve for r. So we first got to divide by pi. And so that is going to cross out the pi's here, leaves us with just 10 over pi is equal to r squared. Now to get r by itself, we have to take the square root of both sides here. So we'll take the square root of both of these sides. Now you want to change the 10 over pi into actually a decimal. So 10 divided by 3.14 is going to be 3.18. and then you take the square root of both of those. So let's do that on the calculator over here real quick just to kind of see that. So I did 10 divided by 3.18. Oh, sorry, not 3.1, that's what I got. 10, sorry, divided by 3.14. And it equals that 3.18 number. And then we just want to hit the square root sign of that. So square root now is 1.78. So that gives us what R equals. R equals 1.78 of this. I know you can't see the decimal. There is supposed to be a decimal here. It's supposed to be 1.78. That's what the radius is. We're going to multiply it times 2. So that's why I have this right here. It's not a decimal. It's actually times 2 to find the diameter now. We got to multiply our radius. It's 1.78. This thing here times 2. So we hit times 2 for finding the diameter. 3.56 or so on there. So we're going to just say 3.57. Then for the diameter is in feet. Now it's not squared because we weren't looking for area. Area is in square feet. The diameter is just going to be in feet alone. So 3.57. Next one says find the radius of the circle with an area of 65. So it's going to be the same thing here. We just won't have to multiply the radius by 2. So go ahead and stop the video and try number 5. See if you can do this one just like we did this one here. You just won't need to multiply by 2 in the end. Alright, so hopefully you did number 5 and you just want to check your work now. So again, we're going to plug it all in here. A is going to be 65, so it's going to be 65 equals to pi r squared. Divide both sides by pi, and so it cancels our pi's here. So r squared is equal to 65 over pi, which we could do that over here. 65 divided by 3.14, and so it gives us that 20.7 number. So 20.7 is what we're going to have to take the square root of, to take the square root of both sides to get r by itself. So hit the square root sign, and we got 4.54 or 4.55 approximately. So we'll just say 4.5 centimeters is our radius. So hopefully you said something very close to that for the radius. Now go ahead and stop the video again and try number 6. You're trying to find the area when you're just given the radius. This will be a little easier. Alright, so hopefully you now did this. You just plugged in 6.1 for r in our formula. So it's a equals pi times 6.1 squared. So multiply 6.1 times itself on the calculator over here. And then that would give us 37.21 times pi. And so then you multiply those two together. Pi times that 37.21, and that would end up with 116.84. And we're going to say yards squared, because we did find the area. It's going to mean square yards. So yards squared. Okay, so if you go back to 321 on the vocabulary, there's one here called population density. So I want you to write this down, that the population density is basically the measure of how many people live within a given area. So write that down for the definition, and also write this down as well, that population density does equal the number of people divided by the area of land. So we're going to need to figure out what the area is of the land and how many people we're going to be dividing that by. So as we go into the next problem, that's what we're going to be using. Population density is the number of people over the area of land. Alright, so for number 9, actually I skipped 7 and 8, and we're going to go right on to number 9 now. So about 70,000 people live in a region with a 30-mile radius. Find the population density in people per square mile. So we're going to put that down as far as the population density is number of people over the area of land. We're going to need to find what the area of the land is. It's got a 30-mile radius, so we're going to find that kind of area of the circle of this. So we're going to use our area formula. 30 is the radius, so 30 squared, it's going to be 900 times pi, and just 900 times 3.14 would give us 2,826. And it says that there's 70,000 people, so that's the number of people. The area of land is that 2826 number. So 70,000 divided by that 2826 number would give us approximately 25 people per square mile. Now you want to go to always a whole number here, because we're not going to talk about half of a person or anything, or part of a person. So we're going to just always go to the nearest whole number on this one. So 25 people, because you can see if I did that, 70,000 over here, divided by 2826, it's going to give us 24.7. So we don't want to, say 24.7 people. We're just going to say round it up to 25. 25 people per square mile. Okay, so for our joke of the day, it says, why shouldn't you write with a broken pencil? Well, because it's pointless. It's pointless to do that. Okay, so we're going to jump into sector of a circle. That's why I skipped 7 and 8, because we're going to come back to it now as we talk about the core concept here of the area of a sector. And it's very similar to the length of an arc that we learned in 11.1. It's almost exactly the same. It's just you're using the area formula now instead of the circumference formula. So for the 321 there, sector of a circle, write this down in the vocabulary. It is a region bounded by two radii of the circle and their intercepted arc. So there it is. This is a sector right here. This little shaded part here. There's the two radii going to one going to A, the other one going to B, and it's bounded by this arc here, this intercepted arc from A to B. So what we're going to do is the same idea here. It's got that proportion where it's got area of the sector of, whatever you have here. This area of this sector here divided by the area formula is equal to the measure of arc, its intercepted arc here, and 3 over 360. So I wrote this here again, then we want to write this down in part of the circle over the whole circle. So the top of the fraction on both of these is always the part. It's either the sector over here, the area of the sector, or the measure of the arc. That's the part of the circle. And then the bottom is the whole circle, which would be the whole entire area formula of the whole circle, pi r squared, over the 360, the measure around the entire circle. I also put it over here a little bit more of a simpler way. You're going to write this down as well. Just area of a circle over A for the area formula equals arc measure over the 360. It might be a little easier to think about it instead of thinking about it in this way. So if you want to find the area of a sector, you also could just multiply both sides by the area formula. So it's really the area formula times the arc measure divided by 360, where the last one we were talking about the finding the measure or the length of the arc. We were doing that to find the length of the arc. It's the circumference formula times this. So if we want to just find what the length of this is from A to B, we would use circumference formula times this arc measure over 360. But to find the area of the sector, we're going to use this times the area formula. Okay, so now back to 7 and 8. It says we're going to find the indicated measure here, the area of the sectors formed by angle PQR. PQR would be this angle in here, this central angle. So we have a sector over here that's shaded and the sector over here that's actually not shaded. So we have a small sector and a large sector. So that's what we want to do there, is we want to find the small sector, and then also we're going to find the large sector. So for the small one, we'll do that one first. That's this shaded part here. We can see it's got 140 degrees. So we need to figure out, first of all, what the area of the whole entire circle is. That's one thing we do need to know, is what's the area of this whole circle. It says 4 centimeters here. For the radius, so it's going to be pi times 4 squared, so it's going to be 16 pi, and 16 times pi is going to give us 50.24. So there's the area of this circle. So as we now put it into our formula, we can say it's going to be the area area of the sector over the area of the whole circle. So area of the sector over the 50.24 is equal to our arc length, the measure of this arc here, the shorter one, which is 140, the same as the central angle. So it's 140 over 360. We want to cross out these last zeros here. So now it's just 14 over 36. And so we're going to multiply now both sides by the 50.24 number. So we have, I'm going to simplify this down here. So this can be simplified by 2. So 7/18. 2 goes into 14 7 times, into 36 18 times. We're going to multiply that now times the 50.24, multiply both sides of this equation, or this proportion. So now this decimal, or this fraction here, we can just do 7 divided by 18, and then times 50.24 on the calculator, and that would give us 19.54 centimeters squared. Now since we're trying to find the area, again, it's going to still be squared. Now for the larger sector, we just again we know it's going to use the same area right here. It's 50.24, but what's the measure of this? Well, it's going to be 360 minus 140. So we know it's going to have that right there. If it's going to use the same area, but now it's going to be 360 minus 140. That's 220. So 220 over 360 is what this will equal. We can cross out those last zeros again. We could simplify this, make this 11/18 there, and then multiply by 50. So we can say 11/18 times that 50.24 number, and on the calculator that would become 30.7 centimeters squared. So you're just going 11 divided by 18 and then times 50.24 to get this number. This one says find the area of circle Y, the area of the whole thing. Now it does tell us the area of the sector right there. It says it's 4.1 square feet for this little sector. It tells us that our angle, central angle in here is 25 degrees. So it tells us that the arc then between X and Z is also 25 degrees. So as we start to think about what this will be, it's going to be the sector we know, the part we know is 4.1. The whole thing we don't know. We don't know the area. So that's what we're looking for. Letter A there is equal to 25 over 360. So that's going to be our area or our measure here of the arc over the 360. And if we can cross multiply, that's going to be 25 times A and then 4.1 times 360. So 25A is equal to 1476 when I multiply 360 times 4.1, divide by 25 then, and then we just got to figure out what this is divided by 25, and on the calculator that's going to be 59.04, so there's our area, 59.04 square feet. Alright, so that concludes our lesson for 11.2. I guess I'll see you later.